Lesson 4. Connect website to Search Console and Analytics. Now these two tools are essentially the two most important tools you need to connect your website with. Now the reason being, number one, Google Search Console and Google Analytics gives an insight to your users and your website's performance of how it actually behaves or how it does in Google search and other traffic source. Number two, these two tools let Google have access to your website data, so they can understand more of how to interact with your websites and also have more access to your website performance. Number three, these two tools are essential to give you an insight so you can modify your website in such a way that it pleases users, or in order to improve the conversion rate. Now without much further ado, let's dive into how to set these two tools up real quick, and I'll show you an overview of what to expect, how to use this tool. Okay, so here we're back to the WordPress admin section. It's the same website that I introduced in the previous lecture, SEO course demo, and this is the plugins that I activated and installed in the previous lecture as well. So first, we would want to connect with the Google Analytics. The reason being, when you actually connect with Search Console to your website, they will ask you a bunch of ways that you want to verify the owner of your website, that you are the actual owner of the website. So, and one of the ways is to actually connect your website Search Console with Google Analytics account. So it's much easier to register with this first. So you do a search Google Analytics, and you click on the first link, and you will be prompted to the registration panel. Here for me it looks a little bit different from yours because I have already set this up, but the interface is very similar. What you will see is something similar like to this. So first you give your account name. So here I'll give SEO demo website, and you click next, and you click your property your account or your website. So here we're measuring website, and we click next. So here you name the website name, so SEO course demo, and here you copy the exact URL of the website. So I'm just gonna copy this, and the category here, you can select any, but just try to be precise and specific here, because so Google can have a more insight into your website and categories. So here I'm just gonna select this one, and I'll leave the time zone as it is, accept the agreement, and there you go. You have officially set up your Google Analytics properties. And now what you will get is a code that I told you earlier that we need to actually install it on our websites, and this is that code. So what you would do is just copy this code and go back to your website. Now there are actually two ways that you can install that code. Number one is using your theme editor, like if some of you knows how to do it, you can do it that way. But the second one, and the reason why I told you to install this plugin FCM, is to actually paste that code. Now I'm going to use the second method, so it will be available for, it will be easier to understand for everyone, especially for beginners. So I'm just gonna go ahead and activate the plugin and go to the plugin settings here, add new snippets or code. So you just name the snippet name, so I'm gonna name it as Google's Tools, and just leave it as it is. And I'm just gonna paste the snippets of code here, and I'm gonna save this. And there you go, you can have a look at the snippets of the code. As you can see, make sure that this toggle is on so that the code is now up and running on your website. Now in order to test if you have officially connected with your analytics or not, you can visit your website, right? And come back to analytics. You go back to home here, and then this is the actual panel that you need to look when you're actually testing that whether your website is connected or not. So now I'm running my website. I'm active on the website right now, and this should show us an active user right now is 1. So this means that your website is officially connected, and there you go. So here's the interface, and I will come back on what you really need to look into in the interface. So first let me set up the search console. So what you would do is repeat the same step here. Search on Google search, type search console, and click start now. Next is you would want to repeat similar steps. You would want to put in the domain name of your website. So just copy and paste there. Alright, one thing to keep in mind is if your domain has a www dot in it, make sure you include that as well, because Google Search Console will treat them as separate websites. And don't forget that. So just continue it. So as you can see here, I already set this up earlier, so it auto verify my website, and I connected using Google Analytics. Now when you're doing this for the first time, you will get asked a different way to verify it. The two most easy ways is to verify it either using HTML method or connected using Google Analytics. With HTML method, you will get the similar type of code as you get with Analytics. And what you would do is you just copy there and put it in the same way as it is here. You may add a new snippet, you may add it to the existing snippets, that's up to you. Or you can connect it using Google Analytics, which I did earlier. So once you're done, you just go to the properties, and if you have set it up for the first time, you will see this matches that the data is being processed. You can come back in a few days. Now here the Google Search Console will process your website data, and it usually takes, I think, a couple of days before it actually start listing something here. The main thing with Google Search Console is what we call as sitemaps. Now sitemaps is essentially a blueprint about your websites. It tells Google about your website and the structure of your website. So whenever it index and crawl your website, it has much details about it. So once you have set up your Search Console property, next you would want to submit your website sitemap. So here I already set up the sitemap here. Now how do you find your sitemap? If you're not using Yoast SEO, you may have to generate sitemap manually by yourself. But since you're using Yoast SEO, so you would find your the sitemap will be generated for you automatically out of the box. So in order to find it, you just go to SEO here. This is the Yoast SEO plugins, and go to tools. Sorry, it would be in general. Just let this load for a second, and go to features, and you scroll down to sitemaps. You click this, and you click see the sitemap here. So this is your sitemap. It essentially contains everything about your website. What you would do is you just copy this, and you paste it here. Let me remove this, and you submit it. Alright, sometimes this will show us couldn't fetch, which it will be it will be resolved after some times. Just give it some time. Probably it's because I'm using the subdomain here, but it's not a big deal. I mean, for you it will obviously be it should be read as successfully read in the first attempt only, so you don't have to worry about that much. After a few days, you start getting some graphs here where it tells about impressions and clicks and everything like that. Now coming to the overview of how to actually use this, I'm just going to show you another example here. So let's have a look at analytics. So here how it so this is the tab where you can view the active users, and here's the graph showing us 7 days. You can also have a look at yesterday, last 28 days. Actually there are just three areas that you would really need to focus on. Number one is the audience section here, where it shows the overview of your audience. For instance, you would see the number of total users here over time. You can select it, you can filter by date, and you can even compare it like this. You can see the number of sessions, you can see the number of users. And secondly is the acquisition, or where your visitors come from to your site. So here you can see here the majority comes from organic search, direct search my second, third is referral, and so fourth is social. And you may want to dig deeper and see organic search, from which keywords they are coming from, and you can see number of new user session here. You can also add a segment here where you would just want to focus on the different you can add a segment here, for instance. You can also, and the third area is behavior, where you would want to have a look at your users. Let's say the number of pages viewed by your users. Here the top pages is this one, for something like that. So yeah, you can basically play around with this. It's very easy to use, but if you want to dive in really deep into the Google Analytics, you may search for videos on YouTube. You'll find a bunch of tutorial on that. Coming next on Search Console. So basically after some time you start getting some graphs like this. So Search Console will show you a performance of your website over time, and the coverage, or your site's visibility on the search results. Search Console works similar to Google Analytics, but in a little bit different way. Here you can see here the data only comes from Google search results, whereas in analytics you get a report from users from different areas, right? Whether they're from social, from referral, from direct, etc. But here is the only information are only from Google search results. So as you can see here, it is a number of total clicks over a period of 3 months. You can also filter by day here, by period. You can also compare you can also have a custom here. You can also filter here as well. Here's a number of clicks, number of impressions, and average position, and click-through rate. Now impressions basically means the number of times your keywords or your website shows up whenever someone types for a particular keyword. And here also you may have a look at the number of keywords your websites are ranking. For instance, here you can toggle this. You can have a look at only position here. I'll come back to you again to this on how to actually utilize this data and rank your website better. And the coverage here, this area is very important as well. It reports every possible errors on your website. For example, if your website has some missing pages here like this, 404 errors, it will display how many pages are having that. Let's say for instance these pages are missing on the website, so Google Search Console is reporting them as errors. Now some of the errors are not not to be worried about, but some, for instance, mobile visibility here, where it reports that which page on your website are not mobile friendly. Now mobile friendliness is one of the main Google ranking factors. Google actually looks at your website and see if it is not mobile optimized. Google will derank your website a little bit. So it basically belongs to user experience, right? So here if it will report that which page is having the errors, and you can come back and see which page to actually fix it. And yeah, I mean, besides from this, I'll surely come back and tell you how to use this again when to actually improve your rankings in a bonus section. And that's all for the for this lecture, and see you in the next lecture.